if you are listening to this or watching this and you are not cuddled up on a couch in your jams with a warm little something to sip on, I want you to stop right now. I want you to stop and go fix it. Go get on your pajamas. Do not be wearing jeans while you're listening to this, unless you're like driving somewhere and you're already dressed up, whatever. But if you can, I hope you are in a cozy coma of happiness today as we have the androgynous, messy but beautiful days in between Christmas and New Year's. They are some of the laziest, coziest days known to man, and I'm personally here for them. I hope that it is a fun day wherever you are and that you are not out, fighting crowds and returning things, and that you're just at home with some coffee and some cookies, because we love that for you. Okay, so because I am one of the gals who has a birthday right next door to a holiday, I'm actually on a freaking holiday. Last week was my, reflection on year 27, entering into year 28. And because of that, it kind of also feels like a year-end wrap. It's like I'm reviewing the whole year basically just a week before the new year hits. So it always feels like it's doing two purposes. When I turn a year older, so does the rest of the world. So that's fun and kind of convenient, 2 for 1 kind of deal. But it makes something like this not really make much sense. I just recapped my personal year. So why would I recap the year for you guys here? So even though it's boring and I don't want to talk about work right now, I thought it'd be more exciting to do a 2024 India and Stuff Wrapped edition and just kind of give an overview of my work as a photographer this year, things I learned in business, wedding trends that I saw come and go, predictions that I had that may or may not have come true, and wrap up this year with a bow on it, just kind of chatting super easy topics today so that it's a super enjoyable listen for you while I sip on my coffee that's now getting cold. But yeah, that's kind of all I had to share today. I also wanted to recap some of the most unique things I saw in work as far as both as a wedding photographer, a small business owner, creative entrepreneur, and wedding unique trends. There's some really creative things going on right now in the wedding industry, and I know maybe 2 of you care about that stuff, but I always think it's cool if you're either planning a wedding, you're in the industry yourself, or you just kind of like to see what people come up with when they're celebrating and throwing a party. So I thought we could talk all things weddings and India and Stuff recapped. So without further ado, for the last time of 2024, here is the theme song. Not gonna lie, guys, it's kind of emotional. This podcast is almost 1 whole year old. She's a little baby. And I started recording this in 2023 before I officially launched in 2024. So that's kind of fun too. To the world, it's almost a year old, and I'm sure we'll do a little shindig to celebrate. But to me, it's been over a year since I've sat every week, every month in front of a camera and monologued for hours on end, and hoping that someone somewhere on YouTube or on Spotify is listening and maybe inspired, maybe feels a little more encouraged about life. Yeah, I don't really know what the goal of this podcast is, other than to be hopefully some lighthearted entertainment, and maybe just a little insight of someone else across the universe's life. Because I feel like we can often feel super alone in our bubbles and our hyper social media fixated worlds, and we can forget that life is not always the way it seems. There are other people struggling with things, and we can just kind of, feel less alone. So I guess that is the goal. That's the goal of my podcast. If you needed a reminder, or if you're just joining, so I'm glad you're here. And if you're an OG, if you have been listening and watching since the beginning, let me know, because I don't really know that many folks personally, who have been here the whole time. Maybe a few, but yeah, let me know. I'd love to celebrate you. Maybe we should do a 1 year. We should do a 1 year birthday party. You should come. Okay. I don't know if that's in the 2025 budget. We'll get to that in a minute. But today we are chatting about the 2024 Wrapped for me. Not the Spotify Wrapped, because I had some feelings about it. I didn't like disagree with everything, but I think the consensus is that they used a lot of AI to predict everyone's outcomes, and I'm not sure how accurate it was. It said that like I listened to Billie Eilish's album like a bajillion times, and that my top albums this year were like Sabrina Carpenter and Hazlitt and Noah Kahan. And while those are all artists I love and like, I was like, really? Like my top artists? And then they're like, yeah, and Taylor Swift. And I was like, I mean, I listen to Taylor Swift. She keeps dropping new music, so she's always up in my top 5. But I don't know, it just like didn't quite add up. Like Hazlitt, I don't think I listened to a ton of on my own. It was a whole thing. How did you feel about your Wrapped? But here's the thing that I'm a little like flustered with is that I think that Spotify doesn't take any data after, early November through the end of the year into account, right? Because of the holidays. That's my prediction. I think that they're like, we don't want to mess everyone's Wrapped Spotify predictions up by throwing in all this holiday music that you're only going to listen to in a very specific small window of the year. So I think that they cut it off mid-October and then have the data, they turn it into their little thing and show you early November. But I also think because they did that this year, Wicked came out at the end of November. And as a Broadway girly, you can bet your bottom dollar I've been listening to Wicked on repeat on Spotify. And I'm like, hey, that data's not going into my Spotify Wrapped. And I think I've been listening to Cynthia Erivo for quite some time now. So it's just, I don't know. I think it's skewed. It's a flawed system. But we're not talking about that kind of Wrapped today, though I would love to know your Spotify Wrapped, details below. We are going to talk about work-related Wrapped. This was it sounds so weird to say. This was my 12th year doing wedding photography. 12 years. And I always have to preface, I started as a teenager, but I don't want to discredit that when I say that. Like starting a business as a teenager definitely did look different than what I would say starting a business when you're a full-grown adult looks like. I had other things going on. I had high school and I was trying to get to college and save up money. But I actually just last night at a party ran into one of my very first couples, and they were like, yeah, our 10-year anniversary is coming up. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. And you were one of my first weddings. I think they were the 3rd wedding I ever shot. And we were reminiscing about that and how crazy that was for me to be so young, but they liked my stuff already and I was affordable and they still really love the pictures. And I'm just like honored by that. And so it's just really cool. So this was my 12th year doing wedding photography for money, like people paying me to do it. And along the way, I think, the last 5 years have really been the most, intentional for my business, and the years that I really started to hone in on the craft and went from, I'm a self-taught photographer to like, no, I am a business owner. I'm the CEO of a photography company, and I expanded the business a lot this year. And I think about almost 3 years ago, I went full time. So that also was the biggest change and the shift in my business when it stopped being just a side hustle and became my full focus and my full income and my full, level of attention. So that really changed a lot too about 3 years ago when that happened. But this year was a huge year for work. And I don't want to just sit here and be like, blah, blah, boasty, like my life's so cool. I hope it doesn't come across like that. I hope it inspires anyone who's considering leaving corporate world to work for themselves. It's a really cool thing. And I can't say that's like the end all be all for every person, but for me, it's been really, really lucrative and fun. But yeah, I hope it inspires someone who's maybe on the fence about quitting and going full time, or just if you are looking to start maybe a side hustle or to pick up a hobby for the first time and you're a little nervous. Guys, this used to be my hobby. This used to be me as a 14-year-old running around with a camera. And then it has turned into this thing, this, profit for my family, this like future. So it's really cool. Anyway, but I hope this is inspiring to you. And so I wanted to jump into some of it. I have this system. It's called Honeybook. And I do have a code if anyone's interested in it. It gives you like a really good discount, but it is basically a CRM, a client relations management tool, and you do all your bookings through there. And so it has all my data about my business. And they gave me this cute little thing it's called Honeybook Wrapped. So it kind of shows like the statistics of my work this year. So I wanted to read off some of those. My business apparently grew 21% this year. That's awesome. And it said that I had projects booked 48 out of the 52 weeks of the year. I'm going to just take a second for that. That's crazy. And I don't know if that actually is 100% accurate, because I think some of the things they saw as bookings were like meetings. If you work a job, you know, a meeting is not really like, you know, the same as a wedding day. But yeah, I was pretty like impressed with that. And also that's why I'm going to be hibernating all winter, because your girl was busy. But the coolest thing I saw on there was that I booked 70 new projects this year. Now, some of that means like booked this year, but the project could be next year or even in 2026. We're now officially opening our books for 2026, which is wild to me. But that's kind of cool too, just to consider the volume again, as this literally started when I shot a wedding when I was 16 years old and charged $150. And, you know, I'm, you know, shooting a wedding and praying that someone somewhere sees it and that's my next client. And now to know in one calendar year, I personally could book 70 projects that all have, you know, people attached to those and clientele attached to that. And I'm like, what? Like, how does that happen? How does that grow? But also it didn't grow overnight, 12 years in the making. So I'm going to preface with that. But to me personally, some of the most exciting things that happened this year were in the education realm. I've been trying to branch into photography education for a couple years now. I've had a lot of ideas about it, but with so many weddings and things and bookings that I've been doing, it's, you know, I want to give my clients my first attention, and they are my first priority above like future goals with business. So I haven't really had the time to really carve out all the space, time, energy I need to sit down and dive into mapping out what an educational direction would look like for me. I have some ideas, so stay tuned. But I did want to start a little bit, you know, and even though I have some bigger ideas, like maybe doing an online educational course, maybe doing in-person, you know, conferences, right now I was like, let's start somewhere. And I want to do a workshop, like an overnight workshop kind of thing. And so this year was my first year. We did an overnight educational photography workshop, and it sold out, and it was so much fun. It was one of the highlights of my work this year, because I got to bring together photographers and, you know, we did the work, we did a styled shoot, we had an educational point, but the best part about it was we got to go out in nature, go hiking, share a couple meals together, sit around a campfire, like giggle until midnight. It was such a fun experience. And when I got to do that, watching people, just like sitting there watching people laugh and eat ice cream around a fire pit in the middle of the summertime, I was like, yeah, I want more of that. I really, really, you know, the only thing I really miss from corporate world, if I can even call it that, I was at a nonprofit, doesn't really count, but like a normal 9 to 5 is coworkers, is really like seeing people and having people that you interact with every day and, you know, caring for them and they care for you. That's the biggest thing I miss about it. And so in photography, you really only get your people fix on a wedding day when you are like there with the bride and groom, with their guests and a second shooter. And you're like, okay, cool, I'm around people. But that's not the time to like, you know, do anything other than the job you were hired to do. So 99% of the other, you know, bits of work for photography is you're sitting at home by yourself with your laptop editing. And it's fine, it's flexible, but it can get lonely. And so it's really fun to do that kind of workshop thing. Got to bring people together and just to like watch everyone, you know, learn, play, you know, hands on the cameras and experimenting, hyping each other up, getting excited, and then relax together, talk about things, answer questions. Love it. I love it. So that was a really fun thing. I also taught for the first time 2 classes There's a local camera store that's kind of the biggest one in the Midwest, which is pretty cool. And they invited me to teach. And so we had our first class in February, and that also sold out, which was crazy. That was a lot of fun. And then they invited me back to do another one. Little tip for you, we do have a third class coming up with them, so I will announce that very soon. But yeah, just the opportunity to be in front of a class. It's not the same vibe as the workshop. That was very much like, relaxed overnight. Everyone got these cool cabins. It was a very different feeling. But obviously a classroom setting could be really fun too. And that was cool to kind of like, I don't know, like put my knowledge to the test, and you can know something, but having to find the language to pass that information on in a way that makes sense for someone who might be, just starting out or in a very different place than you or on the same level as you, but just has questions. It's such an interesting thing to be able to teach. And it's not something I've explored too much, but doing it was like, okay, this is a cool little facet of, this career that's been fun to open doors for me too. So that was cool. I attended a couple networking things and I try to do this every month. I have like a coffee shop in mind that I go to with another entrepreneur friend. And so every month we try to prioritize doing a work day together, but I'm trying to get more frequent, like maybe even every week of just, even if it's by myself, going out and working at a coffee shop. But honestly, the same vibe is when you have another entrepreneur friend and you guys can just sit and work together. It's a game changer. It makes you feel so much more like in tune with the world, and it just feels like you have a coworker. It's like nice. But this year also was just kind of insane because I cannot believe these words are coming out of my mouth. I shot my first wedding in California. I photographed exclusively for a venue in Banff, Canada. I shot a full venue styled shoot in Italy. I photographed a beautiful couple in Paris, and I photographed a beautiful couple in Switzerland. Like what? Like I'm gonna have to hold some space because little India would be in tears. You know what I mean? I've had to take a lot of time this whole year to like catch myself when I get a little grouchy, because I can be like, oh my gosh, like blah, 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 things are going so well, time to self-sabotage, or time to like look around the corner for something really bad that's going to happen to business. And it's like, girlfriend, that is wild. And again, I'm not trying to say this stuff to like brag. Like that is 12 years in the making of work and effort, but also just the fact that like this entire thing that I do is self-made, so to speak. Now, that doesn't mean like God hasn't orchestrated every major part of this whole thing and minor part, but the self-made thing of like, I used to think I would react to opportunities that were given to me. If someone offers you a job, now you have a decision to make, yes or no. If someone proposes to you, now you have a decision to make, yes or no. If someone invites you to dinner, now you have a decision to make, yes or no. But this year, I think, was pretty transformational for me personally to say, I will be making these opportunities for myself. And I think, yeah, that was one of the things that has taken a long time for me to learn. I think, or I should say unlearn, because it's easier, guys, to say, I'm just going to wait for something to happen to me, and then we'll see what I can see when we see it. But I've had to really learn that if you are the person that makes that first move, and if you create the opportunity for yourself, that could be God's way of opening a door for you. You can't always just wait for the stars to align and for the right person at the right time to notice you or call you. And I think for the longest time, I was like, oh my gosh, all these other photographers get picked to do all this cool stuff and blah, blah, blah. And all these other people get invited to speak on podcasts and other girls get to be actresses. And I don't know, I'll just wait. No, like maybe, I guess if that's something that you and the Lord have worked out and you feel peace about that, maybe. Not everything is for everyone at all times, but I think this year specifically, it kind of finally clicked for me. And I was like, you know what? I have something to give. And I think I could do this. I'm going to put my money out there. I'm going to invest. I'm going to sacrifice time and energy and effort and make an opportunity happen for myself and invite others into it. and we'll see what we can see. And all of those shoots that I have just listed, the wedding in LA, the shoots for the venues in Canada and Italy, the clients that I worked with in Europe, like all of that came from me putting myself out there rather than me just waiting around for someone to hire me and pay for me to do those kind of things. Does that make sense? So it's a lesson too that took a long time to learn, but I'm really glad that I finally learned it. And in other news, this was a big year for my business because I started expanding. When you're a photographer and you're kind of the only person running the show, it can very much feel a little limiting. Like if someone inquires and you go, well, do I have enough time for this project? Do I have enough energy for this project? And do I need the income? You kind of have to ask yourself those questions. And if you don't have capacity for that project, even if you do need the income, you usually have to turn them down. But I would really like to not have to turn down so many amazing couples because I'm also just like, I love guaranteeing they're going to get killer photos and making sure that I can oversee that project, edit them for them, and that if they like my style, they can still achieve that. So I expanded a little bit this year. It's the first time I've done this, but I started expanding my business and offering associate shooters. So this way, if someone comes to me and I'm already booked on a date, or if I just don't have capacity, physically to do another wedding, they can still hire someone off of my photography team and get the entire India Jade photography experience where, all the communication, all the meetings, all the pre-planning will be done with me. But then on their actual wedding day, a trusted team member photographer will show up and shoot their wedding, and then I will edit everything and wrap it all up in a nice bow. And so this was my first year kind of offering that service because you do have to let go of a little bit of control with that and say, okay, I'm used to setting up every single shot on a wedding day and making sure that it is, taken with excellence. And when you're hiring out someone to do that for you, you really have to trust them, know their style, and go, I know that you could do what I do and you would have a similar vision to me. Can you do this project? So this was my first year touring with that. And we had a couple associate shooter weddings and everything went really well. So I am expanding my team for next year. And I hopefully will be able to offer this for many more couples because the other perk of all that is that you get a discount if you book one of my associates. Because it's not actually me, you do get a little bit of a discount, but the entire process should feel top tier India experience, which is what we want. I also hired a VA this year. It's a virtual assistant, and that was a game changer to kind of expand my digital footprint, grow in the marketing sphere, and just, again, feel like I had a coworker. So there was a lot with my biggest wedding year ever. I think I had 32 weddings personally, and then my associate team had a couple as well. And so every single client you take on, that means a client gift box is getting sent out. That means information is being collected. That means questionnaires are getting filled out. Timelines are happening. Discovery calls, wedding prep meetings. You're asking them to order prints. You're giving them holiday deals and sales. There's so many things that is happening. You blog, a lot of those weddings get blogged and then promoted on Pinterest, promoted on my blog, and then obviously archived with the digital backups and everything. So lots going on, lots of moving pieces, and everyone, gets moved down a pipeline. So basically I sought some help and hired a virtual assistant who was amazing this year to help me manage all that back end stuff so that I can focus on having the meeting, showing up, shooting the wedding, and then editing. And that she was able to plan my social media, schedule things out for Pinterest marketing. I would write blogs and she would, put them all together in a cute little way, help me out with email marketing, all that good stuff. So shout out to you, Rudy. Thank you, girl. And then obviously the last way we expanded business this year was with our film add-ons. So obviously Ian and I have always offered wedding, film, and photography. I actually think we did our first one together when we were just dating, which looking back on it, I was like, props to you two for booking a couple who's just dating to do your wedding. Like, what if they break up? Like, what? Now I think back on that, and I mean, we weren't gonna break up, but I was just like, that's so funny to hire like a boyfriend girlfriend duo to do a wedding, because yeah, anything could happen. But we did one of those back in 2019, and actually two of those that year. And so Ian has always done film for weddings for me. but never really under the same umbrella brand. So he's done a lot of his own film work, but he doesn't really want his film work, like Q Media LLC is his company. He doesn't really want his film company to just have a bunch of weddings on their website, but he still wants to obviously book weddings. So we were like, let's combine. So anytime someone books a wedding film, they can book that through me, and I don't even have to be a part of it, but you'd be getting the India Jade film team, which would be Ian and his second shooters. So we kind of merged and launched a whole new film service this year, and that's been really fun too. So if you also need a wedding film, holler at your girl, because you can hire my man. So lots of fun growth this year. And looking back on it, yeah, some of it was not unnecessary, but there's some things that I'm like, okay, like maybe I would change things here or there, but most of it was just a really cool, trajectory forward, launching me into this next season. And most of it was pretty cool to kind of see how things have played out, and all good vibes. And again, I'm kind of like knocking on wood, because you never know when you're going to get like a client who's going to be like, I hate your guts. Very rarely in my, 12 years of doing this, I've gotten maybe 2 clients, maybe 2.5, and I've dealt with probably 200 or 300 weddings at this point. So once in a blue moon, you get one of those clients and you're just like, I hope the vibes are good. I hope everything works out. I hope you're happy with the product. And, so all good. And that's a huge blessing. That's a huge blessing to say. All right, so now we are going to take a look back on the weddings of 2024. Here are mainly the trends and things that I noticed. I have an episode that's all about my wedding trend predictions for this year. I saw probably 50% of what I thought I was going to see. We leaned a lot more on the elegance, a lot more like neutrals, but thinking of whites, blacks, greens, pretty classy overall, which is kind of some of my predictions. A lot of like the glazed donut and the opal nail. We saw a lot of that stuff. And some really like more minimal but still glam makeup trends, all of that. I saw a lot more black suits for the men than I think it was aligned with my predictions, but then I've seen in the past. I think that's a really sleek and very in trend right now. And overall, I saw lots of like elevated romantic style. Think like Meredith Blake from The Parent Trap, but still in a very old money meets modern aesthetic kind of thing. So it didn't feel too much like 90s clean rom-com. But it did still feel romantic. And I think the staple of 2024, when you think of the staple trendiness of that clean bride kind of vibes, I think a lot of my clients kind of went that route, which was aligned with my prediction, which is kind of fun. I saw less champagne towers this year and more classic cakes, which I think is really cute. People are kind of leaning into that nostalgic element. I think this one's a little weird. I can't quite put a number on it. I think I saw equal parts of like that monochrome, clean, white, black, green aesthetic as I did color, if that makes sense. I mean, it does make sense, because if I had 32 weddings, oh my gosh, what's half of 32? 16? Yeah, I'm bad at math. 16 of those weddings were pretty much that like white dress, black tie, white roses, greenery, clean, right? Like very, like that's what it was. And then the other 16 were, maybe it was more like 60-40. Anyway, the other group would be more colorful. I saw a couple people really step into like wildflowers, pinks, oranges, and bright blue candles. A lot of really unique floral arrangements, a little bit of tropical elements, non-traditional things. So kind of an interesting combo, but yeah, it's like, I don't know, everyone was either in the completely clean and classy or the like unique, eclectic, and floral. And like there was not much overlap. Like one or the other, and that was about it. But I love that for people. I love that I've been having some of those fun, different kind of vibes. So another thing I noticed, less like honestly little to no wedding gifts or favors and many more like wedding activities for the guests or like a really full reception. And I thought that was I think it's aligned. I mean, I do kind of think it's weird to give wedding gifts when you are really, paying for a nice meal, nice dessert, nice venue. You really don't have to buy someone like a little tiny candle to say thanks again for coming. Like you could, but I do think the wedding gifts are kind of on their way out. Honestly, when we got married in 2020, we did whole coffee beans as our wedding gift. So I had to take a sip of coffee. And I think that's the last year I really saw wedding gifts. I don't think I even saw any this year. With maybe one exception, I had a couple. This was kind of cute. They had like their favorite candies at everyone's table. And then for the kids, they had kid boxes full of activities. Like I thought that was so cute. They had Squishmallows and little fidget spinners. They had little crosswords and coloring books in there. And I thought that was a really cute and clever idea to keep the kids engaged during the wedding dinner, because you're sitting at a reception for like 3 to 4 hours. And a lot of times those kids are like, come on, can I get up and play now? And so I thought that was clever. But anyway, yeah, I would say the most unique things in total that I saw in weddings in 2024 were a mashed potato station, you heard me, with martini glasses, and you could put bacon, cheese, chives, sour cream in your mashed potato martini. Mashed potato teeny. I loved it. I thought that was so cool. Crossword guest list signs. I saw a couple of these. So like when it was like a classy whiteboard, don't think whiteboard, but it would be right there when you're looking for your name for your seat, and people could come up and like answer the crossword, and it would all be like, what was the location of this couple's first date? And they would write in Dairy Queen. And then, you know how crosswords work. So that was kind of fun. A stained glass door as the altar. I'll have to show an image of this, but it was really cool. Very unique wedding. It was like backyard, eclectic tent wedding vibes. And the couple had someone like handmade this stained glass door for them that they were going to put in their home. And that was like at the front of the altar. And they stood in front of it with all these beautiful, just like wildflowers around them. It was so cute. A mechanical bull at the wedding reception. You bet your bottom dollar I was riding that thing. That was so much fun, but definitely one of the coolest things I've seen. And at the same wedding, a line dance instructor. It was a very fun wedding. Very cool vibes. Frozen yogurt station for dessert rather than cake. I love it. Hand-painted taper candles at every single table. Loved that. I love this one too. Taylor Swift-inspired friendship bracelets handmade by the bride for every single guest at their wedding. Like, that's actually a really cute gift that you're going to take home and remember forever. Father of the bride speech slideshow. Instead of just giving a normal speech, this dad committed and did a full slideshow talking about the couple's relationship, showing videos from her childhood, and passing the torch of responsibility off to the groom. I thought it was very endearing, and everyone was laughing. The combining of a Dr. Pepper and a German beer during the wedding ceremony. The couple swore that it was some kind of German tradition to like mix two drinks from each other's cultures. And since she was from the States and he was from Germany, that's what they chose. I thought it was pretty cute. Moss dinosaur centerpiece. Oh yes. This was a unique one because the bride was a paleontologist, which is apparently a job you can have still living in Ohio. And they tied in the love of dinosaurs throughout the whole day in like a really cute way. It was like wildflowers, moss, triceratops. I loved it. Entirely thrifted wedding decor, including the bride's reception look. I thought this was a really fun wedding day. I've posted these pictures and I hope you guys love them too. This couple was super crafty, and the bride specifically like loves thrifting and did such a good job making everything look really elevated while also keeping it like Weasley core chic, and I loved it. OSU football game live streamed to the dance floor because this couple got married on a game day and all the guys were sitting in the lobby, like pulling it up on the TV next to the bar. And the bride was like, okay, guys, like that's ridiculous. Let's just do it on the dance floor. So she had the DJ sync up his booth to the LED monitor and like play the game while people were dancing. Not my cup of tea, because I'm just like, come on, you're at a wedding, but whatever. I guess if the couple's cool with it, roll with it. So ridiculous how much people love football in Ohio, but like, you do you. Lots and lots and lots of inclusion of pets. I'm talking pet named cocktails, the pet's face printed out and blown up for the dance floor and the photo booth, pets actually walking down the aisle as the ring bearer, very cute, pet faces engraved on the groom's cufflink, and teeny tiny pet photos printed out, put in a locket, and placed inside the bride's bouquet. And of course, custom Christmas ornaments as the guest book. So this one's kind of interesting. The couple got married really close to Christmas time, and they basically had these really pretty frosted glass ornaments. So all the guests would sign the back of them and then write them a little Bible verse or a well wish or something. And then I was like, oh, that's so fun. Then they get to take these ornaments home, which is kind of cute because then every year around their anniversary, the couple was going to unbox all these cute ornaments, put them on their tree, and remember all their guests. So I thought that was really fun. So obviously a very unique year for weddings and wedding things that I saw, but I thought it was cool. I think what we're finally getting around to in the wedding industry is watching couples start to back away from, you know, not tradition, but what is said as normal and expected, and go, I would like to celebrate our love this way. I would like to do something with my friends and family like this. And I think that's what it should be, right? Like when you are marrying someone, it should not be about what everyone else wants you to do on your wedding day. And it should be, here's what's special to me and my person, and I want to celebrate that with those that I love. I think that's what it should be. I don't know, sue me. But yeah, I thought it was a really fun year for work. It was really fun for weddings. I do feel like I kind of worked a lot this year. Like I kind of worked my tushy off. I feel like almost every week I was at a wedding, either attending or shooting or second shooting. But it was super fun and it's my job. I am going to take less next year. I'm going to roll it back a little bit and just make sure the vibes are always right with my couples. Like it is a perk of owning your own business is you can really kind of decide who are the people that I work the best with, who are those that vibe the best with me and my style. And honestly, the answer to that question is people who are legitimately in love with one another, who don't care so much about what they look like in front of the camera and are just comfortable being themselves with their person. And that light and that love like translates across the camera, and it helps me kind of feel in the moment with them when I'm capturing them, instead of like like constantly trying to make them look a certain way or get the right light on the right side. It's more authentic to them and more just lived in. It feels more documentary, and when they look back at their pictures, I think they're going to notice that too and go, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I wasn't caught up with the glam and the glitz and making sure everything was luxury and everything was staged, and just got to live my wedding day. And this is me actually smiling, or this is me actually crying, or this is me actually hugging someone on my wedding day. And those are the kind of photos that I really cherish a lot. So last thing I was going to share for my wrapped year is the kind of transition that I've been making in my work. And to the same point, right? I used to really go through a list of poses, moments, prompts throughout the day and go, okay, well, I have to make sure I get this photo, and I have to make sure we get mom on this side pretending to zip up the dress, and I have to make sure that I, get the dad looking over the right shoulder when he sees her for the first time, and I have to make sure I get the bride and groom, next to their centerpiece, standing, smiling, whatever. There are some things that you want to make sure you include in a traditional wedding album. That's why we have this call with my clients before the wedding day, right? I sit down and ask, like, what exact photos and moments do you really, really want to make sure you have? There is also moving away from that more traditional route and heading into a more documentary space. I always say I'm like a hybrid documenter. What? A hybrid photography. What? Okay. What do I always say? I obviously can't say it. I like to refer to myself as a hybrid of prompted and documentary wedding photography. There, I said it. I could get the words out. And that just basically means I'm no longer going to, direct every single moment of the day and make sure you stand like this and your hands are like that. And okay, great here. Okay, cool. All right, now let's bring mom in. Let's bring that. Okay, great. I do that if the client kind of feels like they could use it, if I can sense in the room that they would need that direction or want that direction. But more often than not, I've kind of edged away from that and I'm letting the moments be what they are. And I'm trying to encourage my clients to just be in the moment as well, right? And nothing hurts my feelings more than when we're in a beautiful moment and I'm snapping something candidly of them and they turn around and go, oh my gosh, sorry, I wasn't ready. And I'm like, no, you are ready. Like right where you are, everything's fine. The light's fine. You in your moment, living in this exact second is ready. Like there's no arriving. Like you're here. You're in the moment. There's no more getting ready. Like you're good. And it's a practice of like helping everything about myself and them slow down and go, it doesn't have to be picture perfect to your standard right now. It is what it is. And that is perfection in its own way. Like that rawness is going to translate and hopefully be really meaningful to them too. So I liked kind of letting go of that control this year and edging into something more, just more real. And I think that's kind of where I want to head into with the future of photography. So that was a lot of talking about myself, which is kind of like what this whole podcast is, I guess. So it is India and it is stuff. And I'm grateful for you. Thank you for being a part of my year, guys. Thank you for being a part of my business. If I got to work with you, if I had the pleasure, thank you for being around. Truly, I could not live my life without you. You help me pay the bills. I can't wait for 2025. I hope it's full of, I don't even know. I'll have to reflect and get back, but hopefully peace and lots of friends and lots of new photography opportunities. I have no idea what this next year is going to bring, and I'm excited. Thanks again. Happy end of 2024, and I will see you on the other side. Bye.